Tonight, a cry for help. Teachers tell STV News they're at breaking point, unable to cope with a huge rise in the number of pupils with additional support needs.
I've had children punching beside my head. To not get angry, to not get upset, to not take it personally is very challenging.
They're calling for more support and funding from the Scottish Government. Also making the headlines, the final countdown. People are set to go to the polls in South Lanarkshire in a crucial Holyrood vote.
I'll be here in Hamilton on the eve of the big by-election, and so many voters I've spoken to still haven't made up their minds.
Tighter restrictions on cosmetic procedures. Campaigners welcome the move, but there are fears it could drive the sector underground. And in sports, we hear from the Scotland player who's aiming to make a big impact for his country. I'm Kellyanne Woodland. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Teachers are at breaking point, unable to cope with the number of pupils now classed as having additional support needs. That's the message from the teaching union, the NAS-UWT. Additional support needs, or ASN, can refer to pupils with autism or ADHD, as well as medical conditions, complex family backgrounds and behavioural problems. Well, our reporter Tara Fitzpatrick spoke with those in the profession who say schools are understaffed and underfunded to respond properly to the rising demands.
I've seen staff broken at the end of the day in tears. Teachers, like we're saying, they're on their knees. They're doing everything they can.
Megan and Lucy have each been teaching for over a decade, but they now believe the job has become harder than ever due to an underfunding for pupils with additional support needs.
The definition of ASN has been something that's subtly but definitely changed over the years. It's a term that's become so vast.
A survey by Teaching Union, the NAS-UWT, shared with STV News, reveals almost all members say their workload has increased due to an underfunding for ASN services. A majority said the number of ASN pupils they teach had increased in the last 5 years, but that support for ASN pupils had dropped in that time.
The next thing you know, you've got 75% of your children on additional support needs paperwork, all meaning that they need a tailored education programme for them, plus the remaining children within your class. You are one person. You cannot physically give a well-rounded education to all of those children all the time. It's just not physically possible.
Yep.
The union's survey also found a majority of members had experienced verbal abuse and over half had been subjected to physical assault in the last year.
A number of the violent behaviours that we see within schools, and it's not all violent behaviours, but some violent behaviours within schools do come from dysregulated children with additional support needs because their needs aren't being met. I've had children punching beside my head. I've had a child tell me, I wish I had a gun so I could shoot you in the face. These are, and keeping yourself regulated in order to deal with that, to not get angry, to not get upset, to not take it personally is very challenging, and no teacher should be exposed to that, but no child should be exposed to that either. Do you feel that the concerns of teachers are being listened to? It's not just teachers' voices that are being silenced, it's head teachers' voices, it's senior management voices, it's social work voices, but ultimately they're not the people that make the decisions, it's the decision makers that are ultimately failing our children, and that's really the problem here. If you speak out against it, you're told, well, this is the landscape of teaching, this is what teaching is. If you can't deal with it, you need to get out of the job.
The union say current government spending isn't going far enough.
Scottish Government say, and this is accurate, that they're spending more on additional support needs than ever before, but that's not matched the exponential increase in the number of pupils with additional support needs.
And it's a view shared by groups helping vulnerable children.
We work predominantly with the children and the families, and we sympathise with them, but I also sympathise with the teachers. We can see how difficult it is with the budgets that are available, the resources that are required by Scottish Government and local authorities. Everybody's stretched, but I think ultimately it does impact on the teachers because they don't have the skills to manage all the different additional support needs that are within their classroom. They don't have that specialism.
Well, I think undoubtedly it's a challenging survey for the government to respond to, but also for local government. And of course, the government, through our budget negotiations, have put in extra funding for additional support needs. We know that's where the funding is needed most. We know that that has been the ask from the profession. And when we announced that extra funding, the teaching unions welcomed that investment. But I want to work closely with the NASUWT to resolving some of the challenge put by the report. I met with Mike Corbett yesterday to discuss some of the report and the findings, and to discuss how together we can work to drive those improvements we need to see in terms of supporting our teaching staff.
For now, teachers say there is one main thing that keeps them motivated.
We are burnt out, we're exhausted, and it's the children that ultimately pull us through at the end of the day, and that is the reason why we stay in teaching.
Tara Fitzpatrick, STV News.
Well, Tara joins us now, and Tara, we saw in your report there just how, well, emotional those teachers were.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's because this is a problem that's been building for quite some time, Kellyanne. Just to drive it home, in December last year, the number of pupils with an additional support need in Scotland rose to a record high of over 40%, but that's double the number 10 years ago. Now, at the same time, the number of teachers who specialise in ASN drops to a record low.
And presumably that's really concerning for pupils and teachers.
Yes, absolutely. But I do think it's important to say the teachers that I spoke with, they were really at pains to make it clear that they don't blame vulnerable children for this. In fact, a lot of those pupils are often what made them want to become teachers in the first place. It's just that they don't have the resources to cope.
So what is the Scottish Government saying about this then? What's it doing?
Yeah, well, we heard from the Education Secretary in the report there outlining some of the Scottish Government spending pledges, and she also made it clear that local authorities do hold responsibility as well. But when I spoke with teachers, it's clear that this is not just about funding. The presumption of mainstreaming for pupils with additional support needs has been a policy since 2004. And what that means in practice is that pupils with an ASN can be educated alongside their peers in a more inclusive environment. And that's something that teaching unions and education bodies all agree is a good policy. It's just that the practicalities are not working.
All right, Tara, well, do stay across it for us. Thanks for talking us through it in the studio. Thank you. Now, voters are set to go to the polls in the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election tomorrow. Parties and candidates have been making their last attempts to win over constituents in what is seen as a crucial test ahead of next year's Holyrood elections. Well, our political editor, Colin Mclean, is in Hamilton this evening and joins us now. So, Colin, what have you made of the campaign?
Well, it's been a really slow start, but in the last week things have really got going a bit. The reform circus surrounding Nigel Farage rolled into town. I say it rolled into town. It rolled into Larkhall and then he pulled out before he got as far as Hamilton. The SNP leader, First Minister John Swinney, has spent a lot of time here in the constituency. He was here today. In fact, he was here all day. They are still the favourites in the by-election, but they're far from complacent. Labour leader Anna Sauer has also spent a lot of time, pretty much every day I would say, in this constituency. Their candidate has been a bit camera shy. He's preferred to focus, he says, on chapping the doors. But we heard from him, we heard from all the main candidates on Scotland Tonight on Monday, and none of them could say that they have this in the bag. One of those three, I would say, though, will be the winner come Friday morning. The others are really trying to save their deposits. And from the last few hours that I've spent in Hamilton this afternoon and this evening, they've got quite a lot of work to do because there's a lot of people whose votes are still up for grabs. Will you vote tomorrow?
Well, aye, but I don't know what way I'll be gone.
So you're going into the polling station tomorrow and you're still not sure how you're going to vote?
I still don't know how I'm going to vote. I'll see how it goes in the day.
Hamilton's very much like every other town. It's been run down over many years, but they need to start with the basics and look after the people in Hamilton.
And have any of them persuaded you that they're actually looking at that? That's on their agenda tomorrow?
No, not really. They seem to be fighting against each other and slagging each other off and telling you, instead of telling you exactly what it is that they're going to do.
You watched Scotland Tonight, you saw the candidates.
Yes.
What did you think of them?
I don't think any of them could answer the questions properly that were being asked. To be fair, the two candidates that were being questioned remotely, I think they were just stuttering all the way through it. They literally couldn't ask. I was probably more impressed with Reform in the way that they answered the questions.
Will you be voting tomorrow?
100%.
And did seeing the candidates in Scotland tonight, did that help you decide how you're going to vote?
Yes, yeah. I think I'd made my mind up anyway. I think through the years we had always voted Labour, just because of the generational thing, but now we've totally changed.
Now, Hamilton's no stranger to big by-elections. Hamilton 1967 was the biggest in Scottish political history. Holyrood Hamilton has been SNP since 2011. Before that, it was Labour. It's been a straight fight between the two of them for decades now, but Reform are trying to break that here tomorrow. And this could be the last big electoral test before the Scottish Parliament election next year.
By-elections are unusual, so you shouldn't read too much into it. But nonetheless, I think it'll be of symbolic importance for the parties in Scotland ahead of the Holyrood elections. So, what it will do, I think, is give a sense of real momentum to whichever party is successful, and then prompt probably some soul searching for parties that do not do as well at this by-election.
Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse will be hoaching with politicians tomorrow because it's all about getting out the vote. It's the most crucial part of the campaign. And actually, just up the road from us just now, one of the parties has their main office and they've been loading cars for the last half hour with last-minute leaflets to go out because the polls open tomorrow at 7 in the morning. We'll have the result and analysis at STV online overnight, and we'll have a full roundup on this programme on Friday. But this really is squeaky bum time. It's the eve of the election. All the candidates will be scared stiff right now because tomorrow, it's down to the voters.
It is indeed. All right, Colin, live from Hamilton, thank you. And a full list of candidates in the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election is on your screen now. From this week, non-surgical procedures like Botox and fillers will require a face-to-face consultation with a medical professional as part of a crackdown on the cosmetic sector. Nursing and midwifery prescribers will be required to meet with patients before they can administer the treatments. It's something campaigners have been calling for years, but there are fears the industry could go underground without proper enforcement and better patient awareness. Amy Flett reports.
I'm going to just check your mouth and just make sure that it's okay after the incident that you had.
3 months ago, Florence got what she thought was a non-surgical facelift after seeing an advert on Instagram. It didn't take her long to realise something wasn't right.
I was in the bathroom and I just happened to yawn in front of the mirror and the whole side of my face was like dripping. The first thing I thought was, oh, I think this is the first symptoms of a stroke. You know how they always say that your face droops, so I phoned the doctor and then I thought about it and thought, I wonder if it has anything to do with the Botox that I got.
That's when Florence came to this medical aesthetics clinic in Barrhead for help, and sadly she's not alone in her experience.
We see weekly cases like this. When she came in to speak to me, she was really embarrassed, felt quite ashamed of herself because what she described was that she didn't think the environment was clean, she didn't know where the toxin had came from that she had been injected with, and they had clearly hit a muscle that wasn't supposed to be treated with the Botox, and it was pulling the corner of her mouth down. Had she seen a prescriber, we would have told her that the whole treatment that she was promised was not possible and she would never have been treated with it in the first place.
From this week, non-surgical procedures like Botox and fillers will now require a face-to-face consultation with a medical professional as part of a crackdown on the cosmetics industry.
While the changes aim to protect the public and maintain trust in the profession, there are fears that the industry could go underground, which would pose a risk to those being injected.
We will work with others to make sure that the public are aware of the risks of and how to safely obtain those medicines, how they can check that the person on the register is indeed has a prescriber qualification, and they can always check in with us if they have any concerns.
The Scottish Government says these changes are a matter for the NMC, but that it's planning its own robust and proportionate regulations within the next year. For Florence, she's warning others not to make the same mistake she did.
If something's too good to be true, it definitely is. I would never do it again. You know, and I did message
The person, and explained what had happened, and she offered me half my money back, and I said, no, I don't want my money back, I just don't want you to do it to somebody else.
Amy Flett, STV News, Barrhead.
Investigators in Portugal are continuing their search of an area near where Meline McCann was last seen. They're searching scrubland and abandoned buildings around the town of Praia de Luz, where the 3-year-old went missing in 2007. German police officers are leading the search. The key suspect is due to be released from prison in Germany, where he's been detained following a separate conviction. Ellie Pitt reports.
On day 2 of this search, we've seen German police officers working in and around derelict outbuildings in this large area of land. I've seen them moving a piece of equipment which we believe is part of a specialist geo-radar tool that we know the police wanted to use to search beneath the earth in specific locations. And then we've seen them using a large digger in a similar area, as well as working and excavating these derelict buildings. So this has continued, this major search operation, to find any evidence that can be linked to the disappearance of Meline McCann, who vanished while on a family holiday on the Algarve 18 years ago. Why this location? Well, the German authorities know that it was an area known to and walked through by their prime suspect, who they've named in this case. He also lived nearby. Christian Bruckner is who the German police have said is their #1 suspect. He is a convicted paedophile and rapist who is currently in prison. So why now? Well, the German authorities know all too well that he is due to be released from jail later this year, and that could make finding him, tracking him down and linking any evidence to him as part of their investigation more difficult. So there is a sense of urgency to this search operation. He has always denied any involvement in the disappearance of Meline McCann.
Ellie Pitts reporting there. Now, the family of a Glasgow man who went missing in Portugal while on a stag do say they will miss him forever. 38-year-old Greg Monks was reported missing in Albufeira last Wednesday after failing to return to his accommodation following a night out. Portuguese police confirmed a body had been found in the search for a missing Scottish tourist, but has not yet been formally identified. The Foreign Office says it's in contact with local authorities. A 14-year-old boy has become the 3rd person arrested in connection with the death of 16-year-old Caden Moy last month. Caden from East Kilbride was found seriously injured on Irvine Beach following a disturbance on the 17th of May. He later died in hospital. 2 17-year-olds have previously been charged with murder. Scottish water staff have walked out for the 3rd day in a week of strike action. Workers represented by GMB, Unite and Unison unions have turned down a 3.4% pay increase. The GMB union is accusing the company of weakening its offer, while Scottish Water says it's tabled a number of suggestions and have asked the trade unions to reconvene. Now, the UK government says it won't change the law to make it easier to set up safe drugs consumption rooms like the one which opened in Glasgow earlier this year, even if it's a success. The Thistle was launched following a decision by the Crown Office not to prosecute drug users, but there's uncertainty over its long-term legal status. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Kursianis reports.
The Thistle is the first facility of its kind in the UK, aimed at bringing down Scotland's high number of drugs deaths. The 3-year pilot is only possible because the Lord Advocate has said prosecuting drug users who come here to inject isn't in the public interest. But under Westminster legislation, the facility still officially operates outside the law. Today, Scottish MPs were told that isn't going to change.
We're very clear that we are not going to be amending the Misuse of Drugs Act.
MPs from Labour, the SNP and Lib Dems all pushed for the UK government to think again.
It's basically condemning thousands of people to death, in my opinion.
I don't accept that with the greatest respect. This is not the only thing that can be done to deal with drug misuse.
The Minister was reminded that isn't always what she believed.
The pilot in Glasgow must be jointly funded by the UK government and the Scottish government. Can you tell me who said that?
I think that was one of the recommendations that was made by the Home Affairs Select Committee in the previous Parliament, which I, of course, chaired.
So I'm trying to understand what evidence base you've
changed your opinion on, or whether you've simply become a government minister and opted to change your opinion.
You know that when a Member of Parliament becomes a minister, their personal views are irrelevant.
At times, there were tense exchanges.
Rather than any evidence that you've
I
presented to you.
I completely agree with that question. I think this is a moral stance.
Mr MacDonald. Well, with the greatest respect, Mr MacDonald, as a member of a party that was in government that oversaw and joined in with the Conservatives, the massive cuts to drug treatment services between 2010 and 2015, I think you should just reflect on the position that Scotland is in.
Earlier, Scotland's Health Secretary told MPs he believes the thistle is already saving lives and the law should change so other parts of the country can benefit.
My contention is that were those service users not within the thistle, they would not have survived.
The Scottish Affairs Committee will publish its report on the thistle later this year. MPs were promised that UK ministers will consider it carefully. Paris Kortsianis, STV News.
OK, time for all your sport now with Raman, and you're focusing on international games at the moment.
Absolutely, Kellyanne. A good result for the Scotland women's side last night. More on that to come. Plus, a couple of friendlies coming up for Steve Clarke's side, and we've been speaking to one player who's hoping to make a big impact for his country.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Good evening. Scotland defender Max Johnson says the national team can only benefit after 8 players won trophies with their clubs in their respective countries last season. Johnson enjoyed league success in Austria, and after making his Scotland debut earlier this year, he's keen to win more caps for his country. In the thick of it, Max Johnson and the squad preparing for the upcoming friendly matches against Iceland and Liechtenstein. 2 years ago, Johnson made the switch from Scotland to Sturm Graz. He hasn't looked back, and no wonder. The 21-year-old's been playing in the Champions League, and his team has won back-to-back league titles in Austria.
Been an experience, one that I was ready for, and I'm very grateful that I managed to do it. Of course, it was really enjoyable for me, winning the league over in Austria. So no, it was a good season, and personally I really enjoyed it.
Johnson isn't the only player to return from abroad with a winner's medal. Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmour helped Napoli to the Serie A title.
Many trophies in so many different countries that the boys have won, so no, it's amazing to see for Scottish players doing so well abroad, and no, it's really encouraging for us that players are starting to win titles now and win cups, so I think that's going to be huge for us.
While the men's team are back in action on Friday.
Identity, they have one, it's just remembering it and holding on to it and taking it into games at the highest level. And
tomorrow we'll be hearing from Scotland head coach Steve Clarke ahead of that friendly against Iceland. Now, in other football news, a new loan system designed to help the development of young players has been launched by the SFA. Under the new cooperation system, top clubs are now able to enter into agreed partnerships with other SPFL sides to move players easily. Those aged between 16 and 21 who are eligible for Scotland national teams can join a lower league club on loan but move back and forth between their parent club to increase game time. Dunfermline manager Neil Lennon admits his honeymoon period is over and hopes to give New Hearts boss Derek McInnes a bloody nose in their first competitive match of the new campaign. After moving to the Powers in March on a short-term deal until the end of last season, Lennon recently signed a 2-year contract to remain at the club. Dunfermline travelled to Tynecastle for their opening League Cup match next month.
Really impressed with the owner. He's the main reason I've taken this on. I enjoyed working with the players, and the staff around here were exceptionally good with me. And that's the honeymoon period over now. Now the real work sort of begins. It's a great game to come back to. Delighted for Derek, because I've been a big fan of his for a long, long time. It'll be exciting times for Hearts as well. But obviously we want to go there and give him a bloody nose if we can.
To rugby, and Glasgow Warriors fullback Josh McCann says he's glad to have put his injury issues behind him as the Warriors target back-to-back URC titles. McCann, who underwent ankle surgery in March before picking up an infection, returned to the team in the convincing win over the Stormers in the quarterfinals last week. The Glasgow side are away to Leinster in the semi-finals on Saturday.
Obviously, you never want to be on the sideline, so to get back fit in time for the quarterfinal in the weekend was awesome, and then hopefully get the nod again this week. Obviously, it's a big game, and we're all looking forward to it. Facing a different team in the semi, probably one of the benchmarks around world rugby. So, it's still a massive task.
Meanwhile, Scottish Rugby is aiming to break the attendance record for the biggest standalone women's sporting event in Scottish history next year after moving Scotland's Six Nations match against England to Murrayfield Stadium. Scotland will switch from their usual base at the Hive Stadium to the main arena when they take on the old enemy in April. The target is to exceed the record 18,555 that watched Scotland's women's footballers defeat Jamaica at Hampden in 2019.
We know the current record exists with Scottish football right now, and I was there. It was a wonderful day, an amazing atmosphere, and a great performance from the Scottish women's football team. We want to replicate that out here, and we want to even go even better. And if other teams want to challenge us to get that highest standalone women's sporting event in Scotland, please do, because we want to push everybody together.
I started rugby on the back pitches here at Murrayfield, so to progress from there to the Hive to now being here, and I went to Tynecastle High School. I'm literally always within 100 metres from here, so it's a huge moment. It's hugely exciting for the players that will get to be out there, for the future of Scotland women, and for everybody that's come before us.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
And that, folks, is all of your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow. Get that.
All right, Batman, thank you. OK, let's get your weather forecast now with Philip.
A clear start makes way for a day of ancient discoveries. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you. Well, the weather lately has been feeling pretty dreich and changeable. What do I mean by that? Well, 1 minute we've been seeing sunny spells, the next minute a torrential downpour, and it's all thanks to a deep area of low pressure just to the north of us that's been dominating our weather. Today we've seen tightly packed isobars around that low pressure, so there has been some quite strong winds around. But as you can see, tonight the isobars widen, so the winds are gradually starting to ease. However, the low pressure does stick around throughout the rest of the week and into the weekend, so it is remaining pretty changeable. As we head into the overnight period, those showers do continue for a time but become less frequent, so we will see some dry and clear spells overnight, so it does mean it will be feeling quite chilly. For most towns and cities, temperatures definitely down to single figures. In some rural spots, possibly around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. So looking ahead to tomorrow morning, first thing, plenty of dry and bright conditions around first thing in the morning, but then quite quickly we start to see the cloud building from the south. Outbreaks of rain spilling in across central and eastern parts, but then clearing later on in the afternoon. Temperature-wise reaching highs of 14 Celsius. Then for Friday, again a mixture of sunny spells and scattered showers. Most of us will see the sunshine. Not everyone will see the showers though, and temperatures more on average for the time of year. Highs of 14 or 15. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's all we have time for this evening. From all of us here on the team, enjoy the rest of your evening and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.